Okay. All right, well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our Enhancing Health Science with AR, VR. I'm very glad you all could join us today. My name is Aaron Fristow and I'm the Mid-Atlantic Program Consultant with Bluegrass Educational Technologies. I will show a slide here in a moment introducing kind of the rest of the team. There we go. You got me up there in the upper left-hand corner. I cover the Mid-Atlantic, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware. You folks in Kentucky, we'll either see Nathan Hicks, who's there in the middle, or Meredith Howard down in the lower right there. Our Florida program consultant is Steve Sircone. And then Keith Simpson also covers Virginia at the post-secondary level, along with myself here in Virginia. Again, really glad you guys could be here today. If you're a little unfamiliar with Bluegrass, we are a top provider of career and technical education and STEM equipment. And one of our partners is called zSpace. If you haven't heard of zSpace, you're gonna learn a little bit more about zSpace today. I'll actually take you out to the website first. So we got a very special kind of really guest presenter who's gonna do the heavy lifting today. I'll introduce Sheena here in a moment. But if you're unfamiliar with zSpace, what we have with zSpace is an AR VR learning station. And if you've seen zSpace in the past, they now have a new model called the Inspire. And it's that white learning station that you see there on the left. The all-in-one and the all-in-one Pro is also still an option, but we're super excited about the Inspire. The reason that we're so excited about the Inspire is that unlike other 3D, you do not need any sort of headset or glasses. This unit actually tracks your eyes. It is in 4K Ultra HD, and it's just amazing. And it's some really cutting edge technology. And so we're just, again, very, very excited to be partnered with zSpace, and very excited that the Inspire is out. So again, if you have some familiarity with zSpace, the Inspire is brand new. And that's all we're really going to say about it now, because we really want to focus on the topic at hand and focusing on health science, where there's been some additions to health science as well. And our guest speaker today, Sheena Shoemaker, is going to address that. Sheena is a senior customer success manager at zSpace. She is a former anatomy and physiology instructor. She was at Wichita State University Tech and Mays Career Academy, both in Wichita, Kansas. In addition to being an instructor, she is also an advocate for leveraging technology and real-world experiences to advance students toward future career goals. I think you'll really see that today in her presentation. She is presented at the National Health Science Consortium, at state CTE conferences, and she served on the Kansas Department of Education Career and Technical Education Health Science Pathway Advisory Board. So without further ado, I'm going to let Sheena take it over. You guys are in a real treat. You're going to learn a lot from her and see how she has incorporated AR, VR in the past, and how you guys could do that now and moving forward in the future. So Sheena, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. So as he said, I'm a former anatomy and physiology instructor, and I work for zSpace now because it is such an amazing piece of equipment. It was one of the best purchases I ever made for my classroom, and definitely one of the things that I can say had the most impact on my students. So just to take you back a little bit to how I even got involved with this AR VR, up on the screen, you can see some of my students working on the zSpaces that I purchased for my classroom. We were looking to enhance our pathways and trying to figure out, what what place spending our money was going to make the biggest impact on our students. And that's kind of where I started my journey. Through that, we found that my students increased their exam scores for anatomy and physiology lab exams about 12%. Same instructor, same content, same exams, but at this point, introducing that AR VR and with zSpace in my room, it just gave them better visuals and helped them to increase their knowledge so that they did much better on their exams. So taking us back just a little bit to kind of explain my space, I worked through Wichita State University as an adjunct, teaching a 5-credit-hour anatomy course, but I taught it at Mays Career Academy. So we had a partnership between some local school districts and the college for these career pathways, with health science being our largest pathway within the district. About 25% of the students in the Mays School District were in the health science pathway. It took about 6 years to get this whole scenario up and running, but by the time it was completed, our students could graduate with 60 credit hours and be pre-admitted into the nursing program at Wichita State. So it was a pretty good deal for them. But with that, these high school students are taking these rigorous classes, and with that, it's a time crunch trying to get all their curriculum in the amount of time that they need to get it done so they can advance on to those classes that were prereqed. So that's kind of a little background of where this all began. Here you can see one of my classes of students. This is my anatomy and physiology lab. So all of these students are taking the course for dual college credit as well as high school credit. And just classroom setup wise, so you can kind of get an idea. I mean, I had lots of models, anatomy and clay. We did dissections for every unit. But that's where we were talking to our advisory board about how we could really enhance our pathway and give students those experiences that they were going to need if they were going to be successful in these different medical paths. Our advisory board advised us that AR, VR, and working in 3D was really the way of the world and how it was getting pushed in the medical field. And this was 7-8 years ago when these discussions began. So you look at us now and all of the metaverse and all these new things coming out that are more immersive than we've ever had in the past. I'm really glad that I made the choice to start incorporating that into my classroom back then. But you can see I had zSpace as my teacher computer. So it's actually what I use to do my attendance and grades and my Google Classroom and all my assignments and my lectures I did from the zSpace hooked up to my TV so that I could present. And then I had zSpaces around the outside of my classroom so that students could use them when they're working on lab, they could roll over there, and it was just kind of all inclusive into their lab station. Materials that I had in my room, again, there's no one solution that is best for every program. So everyone in healthcare is going to find through that educational process of picking materials, you're going to be using models and dissection specimen, and you can see anatomy and clay there. But I can definitely say the most impactful thing in my classroom was AR, VR using zSpace. The reason for that, it gets them these realistic experiences, things that, I didn't actually have a human cadaver, right? I had, sheep organs and cow organs and, different specimen that they dissected, but I didn't have a human cadaver. Having this virtual world at our fingertips allows students to do things that are dangerous. I had some students that I wouldn't touch, I wouldn't trust them with a scalpel. So it's things that I can let them do in AR, VR that I wouldn't trust them to be doing in real life. Things that are impossible, counterproductive, or super expensive. If you've been around the anatomy world, I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit to look at some of the prices. I was actually blown away when I was looking at this slide and some of the stuff that I had in my classroom, looking back at the money that I have spent on regular models for my room, and really how the difference with 3D is incredible versus these, regular hands-on models. So I had 2 of these torso guys in my room. Awesome models, used them for lab exam, but trying to find insertion and origins and muscle attachment points. Yes, they have parts that pull apart, but the visuals, it's just not the same as what I can do with AR, VR. So pricing wise, we can see lab costs from dissection specimen to models to clay. I mean, it gets expensive over time. And when you have something in augmented reality that you can instantly reset and have numerous students move through it, it was just really cost effective for my district. So that's one of the reasons that we chose to get it. Just showcasing really quickly a couple of the things that I used quite a bit app-wise. On the zSpace in front of you, you can see there is a model pulled out in Human Anatomy Atlas by Visible Body. So there's a partnership between those two companies, and Visible Body provides some amazing content that allows students to dissect cadavers, zoom in on specific body systems. This was huge for me as a teacher. I had classes of 25 to 30 students. Imagine, doing a dissection with that many students in the room and everyone has their hands raised as they're trying to navigate what's what. Having a zSpace next to them and being able to select on a body part and have it pop up that information for them is super powerful. And it was like adding 16 more teachers to the classroom, just having those zSpaces there and available for students to get the visual. It really was all encompassing in the fact that it's a multifunctional tool. So they could pull up their lab documents and the YouTube video and the assignment I pushed out to them. They can pull all of that up on the zSpace and be also dissecting a specimen. So it was really this tool that had a lot of different roles that it played inside of my classroom. Some of the other powerful health science apps that I want to showcase too, on the upper left over there, you can see Vivette Anatomy. It is a full app of all kinds of different human body parts that you can fully dissect. You can create the cadaver of your choice. So you can pick different body regions, decide which body systems to add, and then everything is completely dissectable. It also allows teachers to create their own lessons in there. So similar to making a Google slide presentation, you're able to pull up models and create quizzes and slides that students can work through as part of a lab. The other one up there on the top right, we have Dental by Leopoly. It has been created specific for dental assisting programs. It has 4 different modules that walk students through tooth anatomy, deciduous teeth, permanent teeth, and then there is some dental restoration. So where they're actually working on doing a filling. Especially in this COVID time, we are not having students do as much practice on one another as we had in the past, with the social distancing. So students are still able to get into a mouth inside this app and place cotton and use a drill and put filling in there and give injections all in this simulated world. And then they can reset it and the next student can hop on and be doing that as well. The one on the bottom there is EchoPixel. This is a really powerful program used by different medical facilities and medical education institutions across the US. It allows you to take medical imaging like CTs and MRIs, which are typically 2D slices of an individual in a picture form, and it puts them together into a 3D model. So very powerful when you're teaching medical imaging to allow the students to see what those images relate to when they're put together into a whole human. So it comes stock with multiple file types that give you different areas of the body and different diseases, but it also allows you to upload your own DICOM directory files. So you can take those personal ones, upload them, and be able to view them in there as well. So coming back kind of to my classroom and how I, chose zSpace and some things that I'm really grateful about it. This was a tool that as a teacher, I didn't have to change around my lesson plans to be able to use it. I think that's really big on our minds right now as instructors. We have so much on our plate that it is, adding one more thing that I have to learn, one more new technology. It's difficult and it's scary sometimes. zSpace fit directly in with the labs that I was already doing, the assignments that I was already teaching. Instead of directing students to a textbook or to my PowerPoint slide to look at the 2D image of what they're supposed to be learning, they were going onto the zSpace. So all of these apps that you can choose from have comprehensive stuff inside of them that go along with the content that you're already doing. So don't feel like you've got to, reinvent the wheel to fit this in. Instead of telling kids, open up to textbook page 255, you say, open up app, Human Anatomy Atlas, and they can hop in there and do the exact same lab, but now they're doing it in a virtual setting. We also had this big giant shift once COVID hit that we had to be able to do more remote instruction. So that's another really powerful aspect of zSpace is it allows me to get into Zoom, or I can be in a Google Meet and I can share my screen and students can be on there and I can have my PowerPoint up, but toggle into an app. It's very powerful because I can manipulate that model around instead of just having them get an understanding based on a picture. So here's me teaching from home. I had students on Zoom and I could pull out a vertebra, and using the zSpace software called zView, I'm able to actually pull that out of my screen so that students can see it live at home, and I can point to different processes on it. Now, this is something I've never been able to do with a regular computer or just making regular videos for my students to look at home. It makes it a lot more interactive. And even though I'm not in person in front of them, I can now be that way because I can have those models pulled out of the screen. Super powerful multifunctional tool. And it kind of, as we have gone through this shift that we've had to do as educators, it's just been, brought to my attention more and more at how I can use this. And I'm really grateful that I had this at my fingertips instead of just a regular computer. Going back to my decision to buy this, I had mentioned that we had some of our advisory board members that were medical professionals tell us that AR, VR, and 3D is the way of the world. Again, back 7-8 years ago when we were looking at buying this technology. We had a dentist on our advisory board who used this, what's in front of you, CEREC One. Your dentist may be using it now. It is a program that uses 3D modeling. They take pictures of your mouth. They can 3D model a tooth in their office and actually crown you same day. So they take that 3D model and they, instead of 3D print, they carve a porcelain block based on that model. And so our dentist said, I have had to learn how to work in 3D, and that's a really powerful tool and skill set that you can give your students if you can start incorporating that into your classroom now. One of our other advisory board members was a surgeon at Wesley Medical Center, and they use the Vinci robotic surgery system. And he was telling us that they are not even allowed to get on the Vinci, let alone practice on a patient until they go through the augmented reality training. So there are different modules where they're working in 3D, and like a video game, they're going in there and practicing whatever that procedure is before they can actually go in and use the robot itself. So as we've progressed in the medical field, 3D and augmented reality has moved into their training and surgery planning. And I think that as medical educators, as we're building out CTE pathways, is something that needs to be incorporated. Part of CTE, it's not just teaching students the medical skills. We also need to be teaching them those workplace skills, those soft skills. And if our workplace is currently moving into augmented reality and 3D for their training purposes and their surgery planning and modeling, I think that's important that we be doing that in our CTE pathways also. So we already chatted about lab costs. I want to highlight one other little aspect of zSpace that I had as an add-on. So I was showing you the Human Anatomy Atlas on zSpace. It was just created by Visible Body. They also have an add-on called Courseware that I purchased about 6 years ago when I got my zSpaces. Courseware gives the teacher that flexibility to be able to have students bring up models and do lab dissections over the internet at home. So when students were in my classroom, they hopped on the zSpace. They love that interactive augmented reality, having those models pop out of the screen at you. But when they were outside of my classroom, I needed them to have a tool as well so that they continue to study. And that's where I found Courseware. It's expanded quite a bit since I purchased it. There's like 6 different apps available within it, to everything from biology to sports medicine with their muscle premium application. They've got some physiology and pathology. So it's expanded quite a bit, and it's a great tool if you need something to help with that remote instruction, or when students are not live in front of you or don't have a dissection specimen in hand, they can use that. So just to kind of recap our decision making in the purchase here, before I hop on and actually kind of demo and show you how I teach with it, we chose to purchase these computer systems and applications to go along with it because of the fact that it replaced a bunch of the other things that I was doing in my classroom. Like, I didn't have to go through as many dissection specimen and models and things that I wasn't able to purchase because they were too expensive, or, I can't buy a human cadaver. Being able to buy that in an application so that my students can pull it up was really helpful. So I'd actually, I'm going to check the chat real quick for any questions. Okay, doesn't look like we have any. If you do, feel free to unmute yourself, but I would just like to walk you real quick through what it looks like from the teacher side of view, how I used it, as my teacher station, and how I would teach a class with it. So I'm actually connected to Zoom right now on a zSpace device. So that is allowing me, I just went through a slideshow presentation. I'm going to pull up another one that I use when I'm teaching. And I'm also going to pull up one of my student lab worksheets and just kind of show you how this would work as a teacher. So, all of us, as we've been going through our teaching career, we have our little treasure trove of slideshows and YouTube videos and things that we've put together for when we lecture and teach. And this is just one of those. So this is a slide deck that myself and all of our adjuncts would use as we're going through structure of a vertebra. So we've got specifically the definitions and body parts that we want students to know. We've got the bony landmarks that we want students to know. And historically, as I would lecture and as students are taking notes, we get to things like this, where we've got pictures. And looking at this now, I can see why so many students struggle with health sciences and anatomy specifically, because look at this picture. There are lines and swirly circles and things all over the place. It's kind of hard to track visually where one part starts and stops. It's not color coded. It's not selectable. I can't rotate it around. And this is where the power of zSpace came in for me as a teacher. When I get to a slide like this, I can really easily toggle into my Human Anatomy Atlas app, and I can pull up that body part live in front of my students. And now they're actually seeing it in 3D. So as we're talking about bony landmarks, I can select on things like the body of a vertebra, and it highlights it blue for them. We can look at their lab sheet, but I can turn this and show them really like, where's that body start and stop and how it's all encompassing. This is a lumbar vertebra. So we usually talk about function in anatomy as well. We compare things. I can pull this one up and say, look at that body. It's huge because it's down in your lower back and bears all your weight. And then I can pull up one that's, up in your neck region and have them look at the body on that one and how it's so much smaller because all it's holding up is the weight of your head. Okay. And then I can toggle back to my slide deck and we can continue on. So, as they're filling out their lab document now, I can say, okay, guys, which letter is the body of the vertebra? Everyone yells H. And then we move on. And I can just continuously do this toggling back and forth between my slideshow and the application that I'm in. The other really powerful thing that you can do when you're inside the Human Anatomy Atlas is where I can pull those parts out of the screen and actually point to things for my students to be able to see my hand in the view. So I'm going to switch over and share my secondary screen for you and show you how that's possible. And again, this is with that zView software. So now you're actually looking at the view through a camera that's pointed at my zSpace screen. And I can pull this model out, and now I have my hand available to point. You know, most of us teachers, like when we're up in the front of the room and we're talking to students, we're pointing at stuff, and we've got models like this to be able to hold up, physical models in the classroom. But if you're holding up a tiny little vertebra in front of your class, the kids in the back of the room, they cannot see what you're doing. So the fact that I can pull this up on my TV really big in front of my students and still be able to point to things is very, very powerful. Plus, it's engaging. I've also had instances where I have it set up in my classroom and a student can stand right here in the view of the screen. And then I can pull up something like, let's say, like a thoracic cage. And I can actually stick it on top of the student. So there's the student's head, they're standing there, and I can put a body part on top of them as we're talking about palpation points or pressure points on the human body. So the technology, it's incredible, it's easy to learn, and it really just makes for a more engaging experience for our students.
Hey, and Sheena, this is Aaron. If I could just jump in too, I mean,
yeah,
and I'm sorry, I get excited watching this, so I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, you're fine.
Not only when you know this direct instruction, but then now students can jump in on their own device, like you said, you have them set up around the room, or
Exactly.
you know, they could pull out that that portable learning station, and then they can do it on their own as well. So anyway, I just wanted
exactly.
to
And I do, yeah, I want to reiterate that too. When I say my students, they had a 12% lab exam increase. That's not because I'm an amazing teacher and like I got zSpace and it was a great teaching tool for me, but I really do feel like where the power comes is when a student hops in front of the machine, when they're able to explore and grab something, again, like instead of looking at that vertebra with all the little lines and swirls, when they select on things in this virtual space, the entire body part lights up. It comes to life. It's no longer them trying to distinguish, where are the boundaries? And because of that better visual, they're just able to have better understanding. And as they're trying to memorize this stuff as they move through anatomy, it takes them less time to find the parts because they can search it and it pulls it up for them immediately. They're not flipping through pages or slideshows trying to find it. And then the visual just helps them in that learning process so they can get a better understanding when they can turn that whole thing around instead of having to try to put numerous 2D pictures together to understand what that anatomical part is. So very, very powerful to get students in front of it. When I bought zSpace, the all-in-ones were all that was available. So that's the zSpace that you're seeing on the lab stations right here that all my students are paired up and collaborating around. zSpace does have, and I'm just going to flip back over to the zSpace website. So that new learning station that Aaron was talking about at the beginning, the zSpace Inspire, this is the latest and greatest technology here, and it is in a laptop form, so it's more portable. But this one does not require students to have a headset on. So when they are hopping in front of that thing and pull up an app, those models are popping out of the screen at them, just tracking their eyes. It's a pretty incredible experience. The one other thing that's really cool about this machine is it's not just those anatomy models that you'll see in 3D. I could have students pull up a YouTube video of cardiothoracic surgery, like replacing a heart valve, and they can pop 3D on, and now they're watching that YouTube video in 3D. That's powerful and engaging. And if you think of our students these days, I mean, they're Instagrammers, they're TikTokers, they're video gamers, they're screen time kids. I hear a lot of instructors say, they're always on the screen. We need to minimize screen time. The thing is, they're always going to be in front of a screen. If they're not in school with you, they're at home on their screens. They're on their phone or on their other devices. And so for me, I've kind of had that shift of mindset that instead of minimizing screen time, I need to optimize screen time, right? If they're going to be in front of it, I want them engaged and doing something that is going to, put them one step ahead of everyone else, or trick them into learning, And so when you get this engaging experience with augmented reality systems, it allows them to have that engagement and that gaming type experience, even though they're learning anatomy or health sciences or any of the other type of content areas that you can access on zSpace. Does that help address that a little bit, Erin? Is there any other questions or things that you were thinking about?
No, that was perfect. And then maybe while you're transitioning back, I could speak. I know we're focusing on health sciences here today, but zSpace also covers a full gamut of career and technical education and STEM education as well. So if you see if you're seeing something you like here in health sciences, we may very well maybe something here that would apply to your advanced manufacturing or to your agri-science or transportation. The automotive software is amazing as well. So
yeah,
anyway,
that's a really good point. No, I think that's really important to bring up, because a lot of times in schools when we're buying technology, I was blessed and had them in my classroom and use them every block of every day. Okay. But a lot of times when we're buying tech for our schools, it's something that's going to be shared amongst multiple teachers in CTE. And so think about that. There is anatomy stuff, but if you had a cart of Inspires, if you have an auto program or a program that has does CAD and engineering, or they're doing robotics, there's apps for all of those different kinds of things that can all be loaded on that one device. And then now you have a cart that you can check out and share, amongst the different teachers and their different pathways and content areas. I will say I'm a life science gal. I'm an anatomy kid, but some of these apps, it's incredible. Like I hopped into the auto app, and don't ask me anything auto. I don't know nothing about manufacturing. That is not me. But when you're inside these, it's amazing. Like I learned how to change a brake pad, and it walks the students step by step through it. And, I look at an engine kind of like I look at the human body systems, right? There's all these different systems and they have these processes. And when you can actually like pull out an engine and dissect it and see fluid or air moving through the different components, maybe I would be somebody that would be more mechanical or have a better understanding if I had something like this as I was growing up to learn off of. It's just so much easier to visualize than me opening the hood of my truck and looking down in there, because you can't see that stuff working in action from the inside. When you hop into one of these apps, though, it lets you to dissect that, and things that, would have been impossible or too expensive for us to be able to do in training in the past, we can now do with our students. So definitely a multifunctional tool that covers all different kinds of content areas, not just health science. There's something for everyone. And I do want to point out too, zSpace has done a phenomenal job putting together resources for educators. So on their website, not only do you have all the information about the apps, but they've actually broken out some content for teachers that are kind of plug and chug activities. So if you get a zSpace and you're teaching a new class and you need some help with ideas for labs, you can come to their content website and see numerous different lab activities that they have available that are pre-made for you. So I'm just going to pull up, since we've been talking about health sciences, and that's my main focus, I can pull up a lesson like on the muscular system. It gives me a teacher lesson plan. So as a teacher, I can come in here and I can see what key vocabulary words are my students going to learn in this lesson, what key objectives are they going to be hitting. They provide you with a student worksheet in multiple file types, which is great because as a teacher, we want to be able to customize it to fit the content and grade level that we're teaching. But those are all pre-made and they're available for you so that you've got some bones to work with and you're not having to reinvent the wheel every time you're using a new piece of equipment. And then you just pop the lesson up open on your zSpace. Like this particular one is telling students to go to Human Anatomy Atlas and pull up the muscular system. So as a student, I would come into Human Anatomy Atlas and I pull up the muscular systems, and then I go into whichever one of these models it's asking me to. And then while I'm in there, everything is selectable. I can see what it is, find all the information out about it, and fill out my worksheet. So very, very user-friendly, easy to learn. And plus there's a ton of content for teachers. So you are very supported through the implementation process and not just hung out there to dry with this new thing you're trying to learn on your own.
All right.
And that is basically just kind of, give you a little rundown of how I utilized it. And just to recap, some of the major things that I love about this implementation into my room was the fact that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. It fits seamlessly into what I was already doing. My students were constantly giving feedback about the fact that they were able to understand better because the visuals were better than things they've ever seen before as they've gone through the sciences. And I definitely saw that in my test score increases. So if it's on your agenda to be adding some tech to your classroom, zSpace is definitely something that you should look at because it has a huge impact on students. And once you get them in front of it, it's amazing the possibilities that they have at their fingertips.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Sheena, thank you so much. It was a great presentation. I learned some new stuff. I always enjoy learning new things and hearing from experts like yourself. So if you have any questions, feel free to come off of mute or put them into the chat room. And while we're doing that, again, we will put our contact information back up here on the screen. And if you would want to see zSpace in person, we can bring one of our zSpace demos out to you and really let you get your hands and eyes on it so that you can really experience it for yourself. It's obviously you're going to look a whole lot different when you're on an actual unit and you're seeing things in 3D. And again, now with the Inspire, you're going to see those things in 3D coming out of the screen that you can manipulate without that head mounted display or any eyewear, which and as I've talked to people, sometimes that can be a challenge for people if they wear glasses, or some people just don't like putting that head mounted gear on. It makes them sick, get that motion sickness or whatever. So I think we've really with the zSpace Inspire truly have something that can work for everyone. So I tell you what we'll do. I just want to thank Sheena again for a great presentation. I want to thank you all for giving up time out of your day to learn more about how you can enhance your health sciences program with AR, VR, and specifically with zSpace. And again, if we can be of any assistance to you in this area or any of your career and technical education or STEM needs at your school, please reach out and let us know. I hope you have a great rest of the school year. Summer will be here before you know it. And I just wish you all the best. Thank you.